Pets Who Thrive Radio with Tammy King.
Hello, I'm so glad you guys are joining me today. I have an amazing guest. Her name is Ruth Marriott, and she is the CEO of a company called A Pup Above. And A Pup Above is kind of trailblazing the lightly cooked space. And so many pet parents have seen such a difference with feeding a fresh food diet. So we're going to jump into learning a lot more about this amazing company, A Pup Above. So hi, Ruth. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Tammy. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So for those who aren't really familiar with A Pup Above, can you kind of give us an overview, maybe your mission, but just give us a little bit of history behind your company?
Yeah, so Pup Above, the brand was started in 2020. It was inspired by our dog, Lola, who we got in 2016. We got her when my husband and I were dating at the time. And so she was our first child. And, we wanted to since she was also the first time either of us had a dog on our own. And so there was a lot about nutrition we didn't know at that time, but we knew we wanted to feed her the best or, give her something that was going to set her up for a long, healthy life. And we just found kibble to be confusing. It was hard to understand the ingredients, what was in it. She didn't like it either. So just got us asking kind of what else is out there that would work for her. And so we did try raw, but she also didn't like it. And I wasn't 100% comfortable with handling it. And so I just started wondering, why isn't there a cooked option? It seems pretty straightforward to understand what goes into the food. And she liked it more when the food was cooked, if I made it at home. And so we just started wondering why that wasn't something we would find at stores. This was, back in 2016 when you didn't have, Farmer's Dog or any of these D2C brands. And so it wasn't an option that you would find in stores at the time. And so we just sort of kept on going, and then eventually decided to create a company out of it. So we felt like there had to be other people out there like us that wanted to feed their dog a fresh food that, maybe raw didn't work for them for whatever reason, but, a cooked option could be a great way for them to still be able to feed fresh food. And that's ultimately what got us to where we are today.
It's an amazing story. And Lola is precious. If you could remind me, what is her breed?
She's a Pomsky. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Because she's got the blue eyes. She's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. She's very persuasive, obviously.
Yes. So did you see something, maybe like a gap in the marketplace? And I know, like you said, the lightly cooked segment wasn't as big as it is now, but did you see something that you thought, this is where we could fit in here? This could be our niche.
Yeah, we definitely wanted a cooked option for the reasons that I listed. I think the other thing is that we just felt like we wanted to create something where it was easier for other people to understand what they were feeding their dogs. So that's why our brand has a big emphasis on transparency and helping people understand what is going into the food, because we found that to be a really big challenge. We found it more difficult to even know. We found dog food more difficult to understand than our own food, which seemed a little unusual or out of balance. And so we felt like there could be a brand where we just do a better job of helping people understand what they're getting, so they have a greater peace of mind that they are feeding their dog a healthy food.
Yeah, no, that's great. One of the things too that we've seen, just, of course, like with Farmer's Dog entering the market and everything, the lightly cooked segment has truly blown up. What do you think it is that that parents are moving to that type of food for their pets?
Yeah, I think it's two things. One, I think that people just historically have sort of accepted kibble as dog food. You don't really question it. It's just, so my vet tells me to get that's just food you feed your dog. But I think as through time, people have become more aware of the fact that kibble doesn't have to be your only dog food. You have other options out there, and that kibble is, it's a heavily processed food. It does have a lot of carbs in it, since you have to make the dough to shape it. And so the interesting story is, when we started the company, people used to say, well, dogs don't eat human food. You can't do that.
Yeah.
We're like, well, if they're not eating real food, what are they eating? And
right.
Today, I haven't heard someone make that comment, I would say, in years. So the mindset is definitely shifted to where it's like, okay, dogs can eat real food. It just needs to be nutritionally sound for them and formulated for them. So I think there's been a really big mindset shift there amongst consumers. And then also people are viewing their dogs more as their children. And so you're going to be more self-conscious around like, are you doing the research to make sure that what you're putting into their body is going to be good for them as well?
So true. Yeah, I know that there's so many benefits. We hear it every day. And I've, of course, seen it in my own dogs from when you go to a highly commercialized cooked kibble and then you start adding in fresh food and you start to see their coat get smoother and softer. You see, some of those allergy symptoms that they have kind of start to go away. They get more energy. It's amazing the difference fresh food makes. And, it kind of goes back to what I like to say to people too. We all do better on fresh food, versus processed. And so do our pets. And so, no, it's such a relief that there's a company like yours that really works to bring such a superior product to the market. So in terms of digestibility and nutritional, I guess, bioavailability, what do you see compared to, say, like kibble or raw or canned?
Yeah, our food, we've done digestibility studies, and so it's over 90% digestible. And so when you compare that to a kibble can be anywhere from 65% digestible because of the heavy processing, right? Your dog's just not absorbing as much of those natural nutrients. And that's why dogs who are on kibble, they tend to poop more, right? You're extremely more absorbing less. Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas fresh food is you're absorbing more, you're getting more from the natural foods. It's more digestible. You're going to see smaller, less frequent poops. That's kind of like the seeing is believing aspect of it. And then, compared to kibble, you have like gums and other stuff that goes in there to kind of like shape it. And we all know that's like kind of like jiggly and gross, right? And so gently cooked, it's like a cooked option like canned, but it's going to be a lot fresher than that option for sure. And then raw is also a highly digestible. I think that it just depends, does raw or gently cooked really fit, within what you're looking for better? In our case, Lola just wouldn't eat raw. And so that it wasn't going to work for us, right? So we always just encourage people, like, you can't go wrong. Like the benefits of your dog's gonna get the benefits of fresh food either way, but we just want to make sure that you're fitting something into like your lifestyle that's going to work for you. So that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Well, and a lot of people, they kind of delve into, I'm going to cook my dog's food, and which is great. They have great intentions, many of them. But I think one thing that sometimes is missing are some of those extra minerals and vitamins that you just don't think of or know to add. So how do you address that?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that the study they've done, or 95% of home cooked meals are not balanced, studies have shown. And a lot of that is because you have to have specific ratios. You have to weigh every ingredient to make sure it's getting included at the right inclusion rate. And sometimes when you're cooking at home, like you could forget an ingredient, you might weigh incorrectly. It's just like the small things can add up. And you want like to have consistent nutrition delivered to your dog on a regular basis, because it is the only food, right, that they're eating. And so certainly you can cook at home, but if you are, like, it is, not only do you have to, I mean, even like a dog Lola's size, like 20 pounds, it's a lot of food to make, one. And then two, you've got to constantly be on your game with weighing and measuring things. And so that's sort of the watch out on cooking at home. And so a food like ours, we do all the weighing and measuring for you. We do digestibility studies, feeding trials on the food to make sure that your dog is digesting it as and absorbing the nutrients as intended. And so we do all of that research kind of for you, so you can have peace of mind, at least that your dog's getting a fresh food and that all the nutritional components have been taken care of.
Sure. That's crazy, that statistic, that 95% of home cooked are not balanced. Wow.
Yeah. 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 It was recently, they have a new study that recently came out that showed that.
That's crazy. So what if you had someone who was a little hesitant to maybe they've been feeding kibble or canned, for their dog's life and they're like, yeah, we don't feed any people food, kind of what we talked about earlier. How would you help them with making that transition to, say, A Pup Above?
But frequently we give them a sample to try, right?
Yes.
The dog is going to, 9 times out of 10 or more, the dog's going to love it. So
yes,
that's always a good thing. And then if they have, just concerns over, well, I don't know, like dogs shouldn't have human food, we'll lead more into the research we've done and the vets that we partner with in order to formulate the food. We're doing just as much, research as a kibble or canned food company. So that certainly helps them think about, okay, back to the conversation we had earlier, like, okay, real food can be for dogs as long as it's nutritionally formulated for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super important. So I know you guys use human grade ingredients. What does that mean to kind of to the pet parent, to the consumer, and what does it kind of mean in the industry itself?
Yeah, within the industry, it means that all of the ingredients are human grade, fit for human consumption. And then the second component is that the food is made in the USDA inspected facility. So the facility for to be USDA inspected, that means it makes other human food. Mm-hmm. That's from a regulatory perspective. From the consumer perspective, I think there's a lot of kind of confusion out there, or, some brands define it differently. But I think consumers are just looking for something like, how do I know that this has the same like safety standards or something that I'm going to feel good about feeding my dog? And a lot of them just associate it with fresh food. But for us, we do it because if you're making it in the human food facility, there's just like more regulations, safety standards, quality standards that are going into the food that we want to have going into the food that we make. Right.
And not like feed grade, like a lot of foods that end up in our pet's bowl.
Yeah, I mean, when we got Lola, the biggest concern, you always kind of default to is recalls and food safety. And not wanting to feed your dog something that could harm them. And so making something that's the same as human food was a big feature for us.
Yeah, no, that's very good. So talk a little bit about sourcing. I know that there's kind of a whole spectrum when it comes to sourcing and some of the proteins that you can get. What are some of the practices that you have in place?
Yeah, so for our produce, everything is non-GMO and pesticide free, in addition to it being human grade. And then on the meat side, it'll also be human grade. And then we also have cage-free, crate-free requirements depending by the protein. Mm-hmm. And those are the standards that we source from.
Okay, great. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about some of your like safety testing protocols? Like how do you guys ensure a clean, safe food?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when it's gently cooked, it's fully cooked, what's called the point of lethality. So in the USDA facility, you have fully cooked meats. So that's usually about 160, 165 based on the protein. Mm-hmm. So it's fully cooked. Sous vide is a very safe way to cook as well because you're putting those raw ingredients into the packaging. It's cooking inside there. It's not being exposed to outside elements until you open up that packaging. So it's an extremely safe way to cook food. And then we also test the food for pathogens as well before it can leave to make sure we're kind of ticking and tying before it goes out to the consumer.
Sure. Speaking of sous vide, can you tell us a little bit more about that process? Like what's the advantage? What are some of the nutrient advantages, the palatability advantage, some of those things?
Yeah, from a nutrient advantage, the nice thing about sous vide is because you're putting the raw ingredients in there and cooking it in a BPA-free bag, all of the nutrients stay locked in there, as opposed to the other method that's commonly used is called kettle cooking, or think of it as cooking kind of like in a large soup pot is the way to kind of think about it. So all those nutrients are trickling out into the cooking water. So you're not keeping them locked into the food when you're cooking that way. Mm-hmm. From a palatability perspective, like a lot of restaurants will use sous vide because you can only cook the meat evenly, and to the highest temperature you can cook it is to what the water's set. So if the water's set to 160, you can't cook beyond that. And so it cooks meat very consistently and perfectly to where it should be. And so that's why a lot of restaurants use it. And so for us, we're getting very consistent, not overcooked meats. So you're getting something where flavor-wise, it's significantly better. It locks in the meat juices into the bag too. So from a dog's perspective, it's a higher moisture food. It's, you got all the meat flavors locked in there. And so they just tend to go crazy on it the way that it's cooked.
Absolutely. I know that we have many customers that come in and, their concern is my dog stopped eating their food. They won't touch it. They've eaten, this their whole life. I don't know what to do. And so we'll give them a sample of A Pup Above. And the next thing they know, they're running back in going, wow, my dog killed that. What in the world is this? Or they put it on the food and they picked out the Pup Above and they left the rest. So yeah, so it is super palatable for those finicky eaters. And I know, wasn't that one of the inspirations for A Pup Above because Lola was being a little bit finicky?
Oh, Lola's like the queen at finicky. Yeah, she is. They're always like, if Lola will eat it, like surely other dogs will eat it because she's a bit of a diva for sure.
Yes, I love it. So if someone started feeding A Pup Above and maybe they've been on a highly processed diet for some time, what are some of the things, like as far as expectations, that you might see change in the dog, and about how long would you say that process might be?
Yeah, I think so. For excitement for mealtime, it's going to be immediate for all the reasons we went through. In terms of digestibility, like we talked about, over like maybe a few days, you'll start to see differences in their poops just as they're digesting stuff more, right? So you're getting rid of waste being in the food that you're not digesting or the nutrients you're not digesting. And then over time, more gradual, you should start to see coat and energy improvements as well, since they're getting more nutrients absorbed in the body from the food.
Yes. I know it's also pretty easy to transition to, like for those dogs that maybe have been on the same diet their entire life. I know it's very scary for some people to think, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be on the same food every day for the rest of my dog's life. And even transitioning to it is a pretty easy process. And I think again, it goes back to that digestibility. And so you don't have all those things that are unwanted when you switch a food.
Yeah, a lot of people, especially dogs with sensitive stomachs, I think that's where people get most surprised because they get worried that changing their food will make it worse. But especially if you're transitioning from a kibble, sometimes it's the kibble that's causing the digestive issues because it is harder to digest. And then once they move to a fresh food, they do see that they're having fewer poops and that they're not having the kind of like GI upsets that they were having before. So I think that's kind of where people kind of have to get over that hurdle. But once they see that their dog's doing well and that maybe it wasn't the dog itself that just had an upset stomach, it was the food that they were eating before. It's definitely like a big aha moment.
Absolutely. Yes. And that kind of goes to, like, for example, he was about 150-pound dog and he got sick and he stopped eating his food. And so I was feeding him completely Up Above. So we were going through a lot of your food there for a while. But it was the only thing we could get him to eat, So yeah, it was crazy, the amount that I was going through. So you can imagine a 150-pound dog. So
that's great to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing that you mentioned that I want to talk about too is the smaller poops. And I think that is something, and I bet you guys get these calls too. We get them so often when people switch from a highly processed food to a fresh food, is they almost are concerned. My dog is pooping less frequently and it's tiny. Like, should I be concerned? And we're like, absolutely not. That means that they're actually getting more out of their food. This is great news, So it's one of the benefits for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I know that Pup Above does have a focus on like sustainability. Can you share a little bit about what you guys have implemented when it comes to that?
Yeah, so we have, we do a couple of things. Our vegetables, our produce is upcycled. So it's not, perfectly cut. So that means like the apple might not be the perfect shape for the grocery store to sell to humans because it's, not weird lumps.
Sure.
It's the same flavor. It's the same nutrients. There's nothing wrong with it. So you can just always take that and use that instead. And another thing is on packaging. So today, at least to my knowledge, there's no food safe recyclable bags available. And so what we do is we partner with a group called TerraCycle that you can take those plastic bags and then they'll upcycle them into other things. So they can upcycle them into play sets, bags, like backpacks, a variety of things. So at least even though they're not curbside recyclable, we're still continuing to use them. And then the third thing is we give back to groups for regenerative farming. So it's farming that it uses the farmland in a different way so that there's less kind of CO emissions into the environment. So it's a movement that's been growing over the years. And so we do contribute to that through the business.
That's really good too, because it helps from depleting all the nutrients from the soil as well, which is, a lot of our food comes from nutrient depleted soil. So that's great that you guys are a part of that.
Yes. Yeah. It's a really nice practice and we're hoping it gets bigger over time and more readily available.
Exactly. One thing I'd like about what you guys do is help educate consumers. From your website, you have what's called Barkology. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's a blog that goes into different topics around wellness. So it addresses different food types. If you're looking at raw versus cooked versus kibble versus canned, other like wellness questions outside of food for your dog. And we have that because, for us, we started the brand because we just had a lot of things we didn't know about caring for dogs that drove us to founding the company. And so it just ties into the mission to make it really easy and transparent for pet parents to really do their best for dogs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. And you provide some educational resources, some recipes, all sorts of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have really fun recipes. Yeah. How to use our food and make fun things like a dog birthday cake and things like that.
Yeah.
So we're getting inspired to use fresh food in different like moments and holidays.
Exactly. And who wouldn't want, like a dog wouldn't want a birthday cake made out of food like meat,
Yeah.
So, yeah. I love it.
They deserve it.
Exactly. So what are some of the things that you really want to make sure to like leave the audience with? Like, what are some of the things, like what makes Pup Above just stand out or something that you're really passionate about?
I think that the big thing is that sometimes people think that if they're giving their dog fresh, they have to go 100% in and completely change the food. Mm-hmm. I think that sort of ties back to, for a long time, people were told, only feed your dog one food, never change. Mm-hmm. But with fresh food, you don't have to go all in if it doesn't, work for your budget or whatever goals you have in mind. You can use it as a topper or a mixer. It's like us. We're not going to eat perfectly all the time. That's okay. But you're constantly striving to do better. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like people should have an open mind of how there's many different ways you can incorporate fresh food into your dog's diet. And just taking at least a small step forward and getting it in is a great start. So just don't be intimidated by feeling like you have to do like 100% a change to fresh food.
That is such a good point, because people do, they what I notice is, especially, they're feeding a bag of kibble and, maybe the affordability is an issue and they don't want to, completely switch over. So instead of thinking about using it as a topper and enhancing their bowl, a lot of times they think, well, I can't do that because I can't spend this much more for my dog's food. But really, any fresh food, adding it in is going to be so beneficial. And I think that's such a good point, that we kind of get in that all or nothing. I have to feed this or this, but you can use fresh food in so many ways. I mean, you could even, freeze it in one of those, toys, whether it's Kong or something similar. And that's their fresh food for the day. They get an extra little nutrient power punch. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I love that you mentioned that, because that is such a good point when it comes to, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be just a little bit here and there, and it can make such a difference.
Yes, it can. Yeah. A lot of people, once they switch to A Pup Above, I mean, the most common thing is people are rotating amongst recipes. There's, I think, the mindset of, the old myth that you have to feed your dog one recipe, one food. But once people get on, I mean, their dogs can rotate in between them, and you don't see like digestive changes, and it's giving your dog variety and excitement at mealtime. And they're getting a variety of nutrients, right? It's just like us, like the more variety you eat, the more nutrients you're getting through different sources. And that's a good thing. It shouldn't be a scary thing.
It's so true. And speaking of that, can you tell the listeners which formulas that you have, like which proteins you carry?
Yeah, so we have our Texas beef stew, which is our #1 seller. People like their beef. And then we have a chicken, a turkey, we have a pork, and then we recently came out with a turducken, which is turkey, chicken, and duck all rolled into one. And that's been very popular as well.
Yeah, we see it too. People love it. Well, they love it because their dogs love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So where can people find you if they want to learn more about A Pup Above, they want to try it? What are some of the ways they can find you?
So today we're in about 3,000 stores nationally. So stores like yours, people can go in and
yeah.
It's a great way you can always try a sample or try a 1 pound patty that we have available at retail. So it makes it really easy to try it out with your dog. And then our website, we have, the blog as a resource, and there's just more nutritional information and recipe information there as well. And then for stores, we have a retail training program for retail staff on our website as well. And so we have YouTube videos that go over all of our recipes and how we make the food. And then people can also go to YouTube and see the same videos. So we have a couple of options where people can learn more.
That's awesome. And just one thing I thought about too, because I'm so familiar with the food since I fed so much of it. I love whenever after you thaw it out and you open it up, all the juice that comes out. Yeah. And it literally smells like something that you would cook. And as a side note, we actually did a video at my store, Buck Avenue, and one of our employees, he was dressed up in a dog costume, and we were talking about A Pup Above and lightly cooked food. And he actually took a bite of the beef stew. That was the one we had. And so he said it was kind of like a Thanksgiving dinner without the seasoning.
Yes.
We wanted to prove that it's human grade. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it just has like liver and heart in it.
Yeah.
A little bit different flavor.
Exactly.
Too.
Yeah. But yeah, so we were, what did people see? I mean, even we will try it. So
yeah, I tried it too.
Yeah, good. So anything else you'd like to share before we leave today?
No, I think that's everything that we've had. And I appreciate you having me on here. And
absolutely.
Like I said, you're one of our first stores, and so we really are grateful for that. And it's been exciting to grow with you as well.
Absolutely. We certainly have. We've got a big following now of your products. So yeah, thank you for making such a superior product.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Pets Who Thrive Radio with Tammy King.